welcome to you. My name's Dale and this is Dale's Addiction. Today I wanted to have a bit of a conversation with you guys about something that pops up in luxury from time to time, and it's this concept of, is the original the best? I guess I'm kind of asking that in a rhetorical way because I've got to be honest, I don't necessarily think the original is the best in all cases. Now, the catalyst for this video, for this conversation with you guys, was a recent video that was put out by Jessie Style. And it was a great video because it kind of got me thinking. And obviously, the video was called Everybody Wants to Be Hermes. And it's a very clever video by Jessie because immediately you're like, no, they don't. At least I did. And then secondly, you know, she goes through anecdotally and kind of says, you know, the Birkin and the Kelly, were they inspirations for Coco Chanel and for Louis Vuitton and for Fendi's Peekaboo, and why would you pay for these kind of other brands when you can get Hermes? And if I put to one side, you know, my perspective on Hermes, which is, I think there are more exciting pieces out there, right? I think it's a good conversation to have because in the past I have made it pretty clear on my opinion around Hermes, but also Chanel, but mainly around classics. And this is kind of the crux of the conversation I want to have around, is original always best? I was talking to Connor about this, and I'm like, I just think that if you applied this to something else, right, to vehicles, and you went to a store wanting to buy an original Model T Ford for today's needs, for a modern family, for yourself to run to and from work, to garage it, to pay for fuel in it. It's irrelevant. It has been the inspiration for motor vehicles since it came into being. And that gives it a special place in history, absolutely. But it's no longer relevant to today's needs. The concept of that vehicle has evolved into all of the choices that we have today. And I think my view is that handbags should be the same. I've mentioned before the Chanel Classic Flap. You know, it's heavy. It's been designed for a time when there were no bags being worn on the shoulder. There's one lipstick pocket. I mean, who takes one lipstick out these days? We've got a gloss, we've got a balm, we've got a colour maybe, we've got a couple of colours. I don't know. I'm just being facetious here, but is that bag a reflection of how we live today? Is it a functional modern bag? No. It is a classic bag. It has a special place in history. It's nostalgic. It makes us feel something when we carry it, when we see it. There's a respect for that bag and what it did for fashion. Do we look at black suits for women by Yves Saint Laurent in the same way? Probably not, but we should. We should know that they, you know, the origin of our modern dressing came from a visionary in the past. And you might argue that the suit hasn't actually been improved. I mean, who knows? I don't know enough about garments and couture, but it's, to me, it's about you take an idea and you work with the idea and you improve on the idea. And the evolution of the product or item that comes from the original concept is of no less a value than the original. In fact, you could argue that it has more value because it is more relevant to today's consumer, to the person who's using that thing, item, bag in this case. So I'm just trying to think, and perhaps you can help around, what examples do you have of when there hasn't been a material improvement from somebody taking an original concept or item and then adapting it. Because I'm struggling. I think that's what humanity is. Well, Darwin said it, right? You know, if you can't adapt, you don't evolve and you don't stay in the game of life for a long time. And I think luxury items are unique in some ways. I think about, and I'm not a watch expert, but I think about, you know, timepieces. Yes, there was an original concept and vision for watches and timepieces, but that has consistently evolved. There is technology involved there, and humans create that technology. It's the same with garment making, being able to cut for different shapes of people. Yes, designers are influenced by shapes and silhouettes, yes, but they're constantly evolving in terms of printmaking and in terms of different shapes and how to use fastenings to be more innovative and comfortable, and technical fabrics that can breathe or are water repellent, all these sorts of things. They're evolutions. So in closing, I don't necessarily think that it's always the case that the original is the best. And I think that applies to anything in life, even recipes. You know, recipes are constantly, and meals and chefs, they're always, you know, yes, acknowledge where you've been inspired by. And I think Jesse's point was everyone's been inspired by Hermes. And if you're a consumer, then why would you buy something that was inspired by Hermes? Why wouldn't you just buy Hermes? And that's her point of view, because she loves Hermes, and good for her. I don't. I have made no secret of the fact that I'm not a huge fan of the designs. They don't suit me. I mean, look at what's behind me. It's no surprise. But I don't think you can make a statement that because of what something costs, you should therefore... I've just thought of something. Where I make an exception for the original is the best is diamonds. I cannot get my head around buying synthetic or man-made diamonds. They're not really synthetic because they're made of exactly the same compounds as real diamonds, but the process for making them is different. I cannot get my head around that. For me, a diamond is something that's created by the earth. That's what makes it so special and so rare and so coveted. I think when you mass produce something, that it takes away the value of the original piece. And I'm thinking about this in relation to bags, and I'm like, does what Jessie said in terms of Louis Vuitton's steamer bag or Fendi's Peekaboo bag, does that reduce the value of Hermes bags because of her perspective that perhaps they were influenced by Hermes in the first place? I don't think it does. I think the people that buy a Fendi Peekaboo, as Jessie said, and I agree, want something made of unique materials that is playful and creative and is more of a representation of them than a brand like Hermes, which has a very standard classic bag, and what they add to that is mainly colours and different types of leathers. So it's all about that bag never changing, unchanged, and the colour and the leather, which ideally is what the craftsmanship is. It's the ability to tan colours in those really exotic shades, and to work with leathers that, you know, and to create those leathers in the first place, but then to work with them in such a way that you can make something look exactly the same as another piece in a different leather. I appreciate that. I think it raises an interesting point that just because a Birkin or Kelly doesn't have logos on it doesn't mean that because the bag hasn't changed, that the bag itself is not the equivalent of a logo in terms of its recognizability. I don't think that any of us for a second can say it's an understated bag, because if you know, you know. And it's the same for any of these other brands, unless they've got FFs on them. But if you don't know what FF stands for Fendi, then I guess you don't know. But I think in many ways their branding is very obvious because of the subtlety of it. So yeah, I'm arguing against myself, and I think that's what you need to do when you're trying to understand what you think about something, is kind of attack it from both perspectives. Does this make any sense? I don't know. I'm processing this concept, and yeah, I think diamonds are the only exception for me. I think they are. What are your exceptions? If you believe that the original isn't always the best, what are your exceptions to that rule? If you don't believe that case, if you think the original is always the best, and remember, we don't even know if, in this case, Hermes is the original. What are your examples of where the original is always the best? And any exceptions that you might have for when the evolution of that item or thing or widget or thingamajig has been improved upon. Because I think nothing is binary in this sense. There's a lot of different perspectives we could take. So yeah, that's been Thought of the Day with Dale from DaylesAddiction. I'm interested to know what you guys think. Check out Jessie's video. It's really interesting. I will link it in the description box below. If you've liked this video, give me a thumbs up and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I put out videos on Wednesdays and Sundays, sometimes some extra ones. I would love to see you back. Until then, ciao for now.